Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and I am finally back in the lab this week, having had a very busy week at Computex and then being laid low for a few days after that when I got back with a horrendous COVID infection, which was lovely. So third time I've had that one now, and it's hit me pretty hard this time. But anyway, that's all done and dusted, and we had a great time at Computex as well. Loads of awesome hardware, and you can see my roundup of all the best stuff that I saw at Computex in a video that's just been released. You can see that in the description down below, a link to it, plus loads of other stuff such as my hunt for SFX power supplies, all the new tiny power supplies that are coming out for your mini ITX rigs, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So we also had a good look at MSI's trio of new mini ITX motherboards, and we're going to be looking at those plus the Z891 that's already out very, very soon here on the channel as well. Today though, it is another bit of hardware from MSI that we're looking at. We have the MSI MAG Coreliquid A13 360, and this is the white version of this cooler. Lots of really awesome hardware going into this thing, full RGB lighting on the pump and fans, kind of a minimalist design compared to the A15 cooler that we looked at from MSI a little while back, and lots of more interesting stuff going on with the cabling and the installation kit. And that's before we get to the most interesting feature about this cooler, which is the price. Now, thankfully, this isn't a cooler that's going to set you back, hundreds of pounds like a lot of them out there. No, it's the other end of the scale, which is great news because I'm all for buying premium products, but when I just want to get my PC up and running for as little as possible and maybe put the money that I've saved from areas such as cooling into a better graphics card or a larger SSD or something, that's where coolers like this are really, really important. The A13 costs just $100 in the US. And here in the UK, it's possibly even better value because I've just found it for £75, which is incredible for a 360mm liquid cooler that has full RGB lighting and lots more features besides as well. So excellent value from this thing, and this is kind of just the thing being launched right at the moment. So it's been available for a month or two, so I'm even a little late at in the party kind of having a look at this thing, but very, very, very good value for by the looks of things, on paper at least. So we're going to be putting it through its paces today, see how it handles high-end CPU and how it compares to some competition out there as well, and then come to some conclusions at the end. We're also going to be I'm doing an unboxing and just showing you how to install it and that kind of stuff, just in case you haven't come across a liquid cooler before, which a lot of you may not have done if you're building your PC for the first time, or you're upgrading from an air cooler to a large, hopefully quiet liquid cooler like this one. So that's it for the intro. We're going to crack on now, but not before I ask you to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to turn on those notifications if you do subscribe. Lots more awesome hardware reviews like this one coming out. And also don't forget to like and comment on this video. It just helps punch me through the algorithm and gets me noticed. And that's pretty much it, apart from checking the description down below, because you can find all sorts of other ways to support the channel. You can grab your hardware from Amazon, from my Amazon shop, for example. Check out my Amazon shop, which has all of the hardware that I've covered on this channel, the tried and tested stuff, not just stuff that I've thrown in a pretty PC just for the hell of it, but stuff that I've actually reviewed and that you will know actually works well as well. And if you found this video really informative, you can even buy me a coffee as well. So don't forget to check out the description down below. Loads of awesome stuff down there. Let's crack on with the review. Okay, so we're going to start with an unboxing then to see just what we get out of the box. And you guys are seeing this thing for the first time alongside me, because I've not even opened this thing yet. So we are going to be having a good look inside the box and working out how everything goes together, and just checking out some of the features that you'll need to be aware of when you are installing the MAG Coreliquid A13 360. So as I mentioned, there is a black version of this one as well. We have the snazzy white model here today, and we're going to be seeing what it looks like. So I'm just going to get rid of all the packaging and the blurb and all that kind of stuff. So first and foremost, we have the Intel mounting kit pre-installed on this cooler. This is exactly how it comes out of the box. And for AMD, what you'll need to do is basically just reach inside this pack and basically attach those two things on either side of the cooler, and then you have your AMD socket. Now, Me, personally, I would have probably gone for AMD out of the box, given that Intel's Arrow Lake CPUs have been a little bit of a disappointment, but there are still going to be plenty of you out there that are going to be rocking, you know, Intel 12th, 13th, or 14th gen CPUs, and obviously if you have one of those, they are pretty toasty, so that's where this large liquid cooler and its powerful pump will hopefully come in handy as well. So other components that you'll want to take note of are the radiator screws. So there are no fan screws included here because, as you can see, the fans are pre-installed on this cooler, which is a fantastic feature. Saves a huge amount of time, and otherwise you'd have to be dealing with like 12 screws on this radiator to mount all the fans, and occasionally you might want to mount the fans on the front as well, so you'd have to swap them around and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a huge benefit having the fans installed out of the box. So this thing, this pack here, is basically just a radiator screw. So these you'll want to use if you mount the radiator to the roof of your case, for example, which is pretty much what this cooler is designed for. So we also get some thermal paste as well, and there is enough in here for a couple of applications. So if you want to move this cooler to another system, or you just want to reapply your thermal paste after a year or something, or you mess it up the first time or whatever, then you have a whole tube of thermal paste here. I kind of prefer having a tube compared to having it pre-applied, because it's very easy to damage the pre-applied application layer on the bottom of the cooler, and when you do that, it means that you're not going to get great thermal transfer. But here you get a couple of applications, and I just always prefer having a tube in the box, which is what we have here. So there's not that much else to talk about in terms of components, because pretty much everything is secured to the actual cooler. Now I'm just going to move the box out of the way because there's literally nothing else I want to talk about in there. We just want to have a good look at the cooler now. So nice and protected with all this extra packaging, so it should come out the box looking nice and shiny with no scratches. So if we look at the fans down here, they are all daisy chained, so RGB lighting and fan speed is all kind of daisy chained and hidden away. And typically you would run the cooler this way round. So you can see that MSI has kind of thought about that, and it has routed the cables, daisy chained them on the other side. You then have it in your case like this, and going around this way with the cooler like so. So that is pretty much how you would have it in your case. And you can see here that it's super clean, and you've just got a couple of cables to deal with. All of the fans are pre-installed. The only thing you might want to do is just remove these little tags here. I'm just going to leave those on for the time being. But the little tags here just help protect that logo from any scratches. So that's the only thing that you'll need to do with the actual radiator. All of the fans are pre-installed, as I mentioned. And if we have a little close-up here, you can see that there is a ring around the fan blades. Now, that's meant to reinforce the fan blades and also boost the performance of the fan. I've noticed it on quite a few fans out there, and a lot of the slim fans out there that I've reviewed on the channel, they can have blades that are quite flimsy, and just having that ring around the edge can just help boost airflow, and it also just adds for a slightly neater look, and with RGB lighting especially, you have a nice ring, glowing ring around the edge as well. But it is primarily done for performance reasons. So a pretty dense fin packing, or fins per inch, folds per inch, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty dense on this radiator, so hopefully the fans will have the power to deal with that and take advantage of that extra surface area. Just want to actually check what speed the fans are. I'm going to have a quick look on the box, see if we've got any specifications on here. I don't think we have, but we will put the RPM up later, and I'll be talking about it. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any kind of detailed specifications on the box. Oh no, just found it. So as we can see down here, the RPM goes up to 2000, which is reasonable. I'd say that's sort of slightly above average. We see a little bit below, maybe down to sort of 1500, 1800 RPM. Also seeing liquid coolers with slightly faster spinning fans as well. This is a 360mm radiator though, so generally these things are designed for low noise, whereas the 240mm radiators, they often have faster spinning fans, and they can sometimes outperform these larger models because of that, especially with low to medium heat loads. So we've got a rifle bearing as well. That's how they're hitting the price point. So the fluid dynamic bearings can be a little bit quieter and a little bit smoother, but that's just what you do, what you deal with, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a better fan. Depends on a lot of other factors as well. So pump speed up to 3800 RPM, and we have obviously compatibility with AM5, socket AM5 and AM4 from AMD. So if you've got a Ryzen 3000 or 5000 series older CPU on socket AM4, it's compatible with those. Obviously, it's pretty much the same socket anyway. And obviously AM5, Ryzen 7000 and 9000. And then with Intel, it is LGA 1700 and LGA 1851 compatible. So that is basically 12th, 13th, 14th gen plus the new Core Ultra series CPUs and any kind of next generation CPUs that Intel has as well. So if we have a look at the cabling, we already know that everything here is daisy chained, but what do we actually get at the end? So I'm just going to undo these cables down here, and we can take a look and see what we get. So the fans, what we have here is all three fans basically combine into a single PWM 4-pin header for your motherboard, and then we have a daisy chainable RGB connector on here. But again, to power all three fans and to illuminate all three fans, we just have single connectors here, which is pretty cool. Now the pump, you will probably want to have that running at full speed. We're going to have a look at the noise levels and see if you might want to tune it down a little bit. Some of these liquid cooler pumps are very noisy at full speed and are kind of designed to drop down to the similar speeds as your fans. Others need to run at full speed all the time. So we're going to investigate that with this cooler and just see where the sweet spot is in terms of noise and cooling, which is really, really important in any liquid cooler review. And if you want to, you can actually daisy chain the RGB lighting to the RGB lighting on the fans. So we have a male connector here running off the fans, and we also have a female connector running off the pump. So you can separately control the pump from your motherboard with the RGB lighting, but you can also daisy chain it to the fans like we have here. And that means we now have three fans and our pump all hooked up to a single RGB connector, which you can connect to your motherboard or RGB hub or whatever you have. And that just saves on a whole bunch of cable tidying. The fans, though, they have to be connected separately. We have a 3-pin connector for the pump and a 4-pin connector for the fans. So a pretty simple installation. A whole load of work is actually done for you with this thing because the fans and cables are all neatly routed away out of the box. The only thing you might want to do is just swap the brackets over for your particular socket. Intel is supported out of the box with 12th, 13th and 14th gen CPUs, as well as the current Core Ultra series, but AMD, you just have to swap the brackets over for the ones that are included in the box, and that's pretty simple to do, really. So if we have a look at the actual tubing, now the tubing technology here is designed to be, or at least reduce or eliminate evaporation, which can happen over long periods of time from the tubing, which is why you have to just make sure that your pump is being fed by the radiator and the pump isn't higher than the radiator, because the radiator basically acts like a reservoir. And over time, if there is air ingress into the coolant, the sealed loop here, we can actually see the pump start to run dry and start to gurgle and become noisy. So hopefully that won't be the case with this cooler, but obviously it's difficult to test a statement when that's not going to happen for a couple of years. So yeah, we'll just have to take MSI's word on that and just see how things go. But the tubing, nicely flexible there. They're reasonably long as well, but generally this cooler is designed to be sitting in the roof of your case, which is usually the most efficient way to have your water cooling set up. And very flexible in terms of the rotation there, so depending on how the orientation in your case might be slightly different. It's very, very flexible. And just on the top here, we have the pump section. And I don't think, yeah, it is removable. That's good. So the cap here is just a plastic cap, but you can actually easily rotate it like so, depending on which orientation you have in your case. And it's very, very easy to do. You don't need to do it in software or anything else. So there's obviously RGB illumination going around the edge that we'll have a look at later. So that's it for the unboxing. Let's do a quick system build and then we will see how this thing performs. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and install the cooler now then. If you've already installed a liquid cooler before, there isn't much new here, but you might want to pay attention to this very quick guide. Anyway, so we're going to start with the back plate, and it's got these two adhesive strips down here. We're just going to remove the protective tops on those because we want this to be able to stick to our motherboard. Now, this is a Project Zero motherboard, so we're going to be looking at a fabulous new Project Zero case from MSI in another video coming out very, very soon. So we're going to be using the Project Zero motherboard today just to give both of those things a bit more of a showing off. And what we want to do is to actually place the back plate onto the rear of this Intel motherboard. And you will only need to do this for Intel motherboards. You don't need to do it for AMD because AMD comes with the back plate, and you can just swap the mounting clips on the cooler over and away you go. But here we have to install the back plate first. As you can see, the 4 holes there, and the adhesive strips just help hold this in place, so you can now install your motherboard into your case, and then you can screw the cooler in. If you didn't have those adhesive strips there, the back plate would just fall off. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and install the processor, and the way that I like to do this, just to kind of get a good grip of the processor over here, don't lower it down from a height because it's really easy to drop the processor. If it falls into the socket, you're going to bend some pins and brick your motherboard. It's pretty much irreparable if you do that. And the pins these days are so tiny that it's very, very unlikely you'll be able to bend them back like you could in the good old days of LGA 775 and a few sockets after that. There are now so many pins in this socket, and they're so tiny that the tolerances are just too fine to be able to, for most situations, to warrant a repair. So what I like to do is just to move the processor over from a very low height and just lower it gently into the socket. So if I do drop it from there, it's not going to damage those pins. Just 2 seconds of care can save you a whole world of pain. So that is our processor mounted nicely in the socket. So what we can do now is go ahead and apply our thermal paste. And I usually like, on larger CPUs like this, I like to do a large, kind of like a very thin, if I can get the paste coming out, there we go, just a very thin cross, because I found that that generally gives slightly better coverage over the width of the processor. Just a long line can work mostly okay, but you're kind of at the mercy of how neat your line is and how much you use and everything else. I just find a cross is a little bit more foolproof. Or of course you can spread it yourself over the surface of the processor. And as you can see, there's loads of thermal paste left in there, so that's really, really good. Now with AMD systems, just grabbing the cooler over here, with AMD systems you will need to replace these 2 back plates by just removing these 4 screws around the bottom, and you'll need to swap in the AMD plates. So we've got the Intel plates on here. As you can see, they're going to line up nicely with our cooler. Next thing, and always remember to do this, just make a note in your brain right now to remove the plastic sticker on the bottom, because it is very, very easy to forget about it and leave it on there. Thankfully, this thing is pretty large, so it's going to be less likely that you'll forget, but if your processor temperatures are sky high after you do this, just make sure you have removed that, because it's a very, very common thing to do. So a lovely polished base there as well on this cooler. As you can see, it's been machined exceptionally well. It looks absolutely fantastic. So what you want to do now is just kind of get your orientation right in terms of your system. So we're going to be mounting the cooler in the roof. So generally, you probably want to have it kind of like this, with the ports at the front of your case on the radiator and the cooler with the port on the side. So that is what we are going to go with here. If you want to mount it any other way, as we said earlier, you can just rotate the plastic fascia on the top here and have the small MSI logo in whatever orientation you need. So we are going to go ahead and do that now, and just make sure these little screw things are all lining up properly. And then we can go ahead and screw these things in. Now, what I would suggest is don't screw one corner all the way in. Do each one about 5 or 6 turns each, so it secures into the socket. And what this will do is spread the thermal paste evenly underneath. And you'll also get a much, much easier time, because if you lock off this side all the way down, This side is going to be really tough to get in because you've got the full tension of that spring lifting the cooler up from that side, and you're just going to make your life a lot harder doing it like that, and doing it this way is a lot easier. So also helps if you do it diagonally as well. So if you start off down here, then move over there, then move across, and then go down there like that. So now we know that our thermal paste has been given the best chance to spread properly underneath the cooler. And I think that's pretty much us locked down. So that is the cooler installed. You may even want to install the radiator up there in the case afterwards and install your motherboard first. I just prefer doing it like this because then the only other thing I've got to do is install the radiator, and doing it like this just means that you're not fiddling around inside the case doing this job here, which is the more tricky thing. So this is just the way I like to do it. You might want to try a different way. So now all I'm going to do is just open up the case, and we'll be back and we'll install the motherboard and the cooler. So here we are with our beautiful Project Zero case, and if you want to see this case in action and a full review, you can check out my other videos as well. And what we're going to do now is just lower the radiator and motherboard into the case so we can crack on with our system build. So just lowering the motherboard down into the case and lining everything up properly, which is easier said than done when you're holding, well, kind of worrying about the camera view at the same time. So just make sure all the cables are kind of not hidden by the radiator. And as we can see up the top, super easy to install everything. So what I'm going to do now is just secure the motherboard, and then we can have a flip around over the top. And we can see that there's loads of kind of leeway here for the radiator to be shifted backwards and forwards, left and right. So you can try and avoid your motherboard and all those kind of things. But in general here, especially in this case, there's more than enough clearance up here between the motherboard VRM heatsinks and the cooler as well. So that's pretty much it, minus some screws that we're going to install right now. Right, so we've got all our hardware installed in the case. We're now going to secure the radiator to the case, and to do that you'll need to fish out the case screws in the box. Now the case, or rather the cooler, comes with 12 of these screws to secure it to the case, but really in a sturdy case like the MSI case that we've got here, you only really need 4, one in each corner. If you do install the rest of them, you're not really gaining anything other than just kind of wasting your time, but it might be useful if you have a a cheap case that's maybe a little bit flimsy and the corners down here are kind of bowing or something like that, and you need a bit of extra support. This is a nice sturdy case, so we don't really need to do that. So first and foremost though, you'll need to probably remove the top cover of your case unless all of these runs here for your radiator are exposed out of the box. And then what we need to do is just kind of do a test fit down here and just line up the screw holes with the radiator. And the one thing you'll notice here is that we actually have 2 rails at the bottom. The bottom rail is actually for larger, wider 140mm fans and radiators, so we don't need to use that one in this case. But occasionally you'll get a case up that has dual runs both here, and that allows you to kind of switch between the 2 different mounts and maybe get some extra clearance between the radiator and your motherboard. So what we want to do is pop a screw in each corner, and I'm going to be using my trusty precision electronic screwdriver here. I can highly recommend you get one of these. Even this one, I've got a link to it down in the comments below. Absolutely awesome, comes with a whole bunch of attachments, a case that you can charge in, and it's just my go-to screwdriver these days. Don't use a standard electric screwdriver when you're doing this kind of stuff because they have loads of torque and they can easily strip screws and threads and all that kind of stuff. So definitely don't want to do that. Another thing you don't want to do is to let go of your radiator once you have a single screw installed. So we are going to go ahead and secure one screw in the corner. And what you want to do here is don't let go of the radiator, because what can happen is you'll basically wrench that screw potentially through the fan mounting hole down there and just kind of ruin your day really. So you definitely don't want to do that. Hold on to the radiator until you've got another screw in the other diagonal corner, and that way we'll be nicely secured with our radiator. So we can let go now and just hook up the other 2 screws. That's the 3rd one, and then we're going to go to the 4th. Oh, nearly dropped that one. Always tricky doing it on camera because I'm kind of looking at what you guys are looking rather than looking at what I'm doing. And that's it. So very, very quick and easy to install a radiator into a case, made easier by this MSI case that we have here. And the last thing you need to do is just pop the top panel on, just making sure there are no obstructions down here or anything like that. Unlikely there would be, but it's always worth checking. And that is it. So our radiator is in, our motherboard is in, all our hardware is in the case. We just need to whack in a power supply and off we go. So we are looking at the thermal results now then, and we've had Cinebench R24 running on its multi-core stress test for about 10 minutes, which is a pretty good stress test, and we have a peak CPU temperature here of 78 degrees C, and that's after 10 minutes with a Ryzen 9 9950X. And if we compare it against some other coolers, the result of 78 degrees is literally just 2 degrees C warmer than the MSI MAG Coreliquid A13 360, which is just slightly more expensive cooler, and just 3 degrees warmer than the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 360 with this CPU. So I know a lot of you out there are concerned about pump noise, and one thing I wanted to go over quickly is the noise from this cooler, specifically the pump, and if you need to do anything about it. It's definitely not the loudest pump I've ever heard on a liquid cooler, but it is not silent when it's running at full speed, which it can do if your fans are running flat out along with your CPU in a demanding task. So what you can do to reduce it to a speed that is more manageable to your ears is to just simply reduce the speed to 80% or below. So what I would suggest is doing something like this in your BIOS, or you can even use MSI's center software to do it as well. What you want to do is just make sure that the fan curve doesn't go above 80% here on the pump. So you can see here that 80% is represented by about 3200 RPM, 3300 RPM. The pump will go all the way up to nearly 4000 RPM, so we're dropping it down a fair way. And what you need to do is just drag these bars down. So you probably don't want to have it much lower than 60, because I did find that on some loads with the CPU, you do need at least 80 degrees. I dropped it down to 60 degrees and the temperature quickly went well over 85 degrees C. So you do need a modicum of pump speed, pump power here for the coolant to actually continue flowing around the loop and not hamper cooling further still. So what I would do is, if you are concerned about noise levels and you just want to keep things very, very quiet, what you can do is just kind of set up something like this, where if your CPU goes above 50 degrees C, it will ramp up to about 80% on the pump. And what I found is doing this doesn't see the CPU temperature rise more than a few degrees. So we saw 78 degrees C in our testing, which is a couple of degrees higher than the likes of the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 and the MSI A13 360mm cooler, slightly more expensive version of this one. But what we had here, even by dropping the pump speed pretty much down to inaudible levels above the rest of the system, we only saw the temperature rise from 78 to 81, so it only went up 3 degrees C, and that for me is totally worth it given the lower noise levels that we're going to be dealing with here. So just bear this in mind. If you are finding that the pump is a little bit too loud for you, or you're concerned about this, there's a very easy fix, which is just to allow it to cap off at about 80% speed in MSI's center software, or you can do that in the EFI as well. So what do we make of the MSI MAG Coreliquid A13 360 then? Well, first and foremost, $75, $100 for a fully featured 360mm liquid cooler is ridiculously good value. This thing has everything that you could want from a modern liquid cooler of around this price, or even a little bit more. It's got full RGB lighting with the fans and the pump, and those fans are pre-installed out of the box, so you don't need to fiddle around with 12 screws and 3 fans and God knows how many cables. The cables are pre-daisy chained and pre-cable tied as well, so you really couldn't ask for a simpler installation. And whether you're using AMD or Intel or switching between the two at some point in its life, It's super easy to switch between the two mounting mechanisms as well. And just overall easy to install and get going, and looks fantastic once it is up and running as well. So incredible value, very easy to install, and as we saw in the performance stakes, it is literally a couple of degrees off the very best liquid coolers that we've tested here on the channel. So the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3, for example, only just a couple of degrees ahead, but it has the downside of a big fat radiator that you may struggle to fit in lots of cases. That is not the case here. You're dealing with a standard height radiator, standard height fans, and we have a very, very easy to install liquid cooler that's very compatible with pretty much any case that says it can install a 360mm radiator in there. So all in all, it's an excellent product, superb value. That's probably the headline feature here today, is the value doesn't really get much better than this. £75 here in the UK, about $100 in the US. You can see links to all of those things down in the description below, as well as my Amazon shop to help you choose other components for your PC. That's all the tried and tested stuff I've looked at here on the channel, not just pretty things that I put in a PC. And also thanks to MSI for sponsoring today's video, and don't forget to check out the rest of the links down in the description below as well. And if you found this video really informative, you could even buy me a coffee. So thanks a lot for watching today. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Liking and commenting on this video just helps punch me through the algorithm and gets me noticed. Subscribing always means a huge amount to me as well. So that's it from me today. Thanks to MSI again. Thanks to you guys for watching, and we'll be back very, very soon.